South African politics is entering a phase of such rapid change that even seasoned observers are being forced to pause and reconsider what they believed they understood about power, loyalty, and stability within the ruling party. What is unfolding goes far beyond routine disagreements or familiar internal debates. Instead, it points to a deeper and more unsettling transformation in how authority is challenged and how relationships inside the African National Congress are beginning to fracture. This is not merely another dramatic headline or a passing controversy. It carries the weight of a potential turning point, one that could reshape how South Africa is governed and how citizens relate to the political system itself. This moment is unfolding against a broader continental backdrop, where African politics appears to be moving through a period marked by declining trust in long-standing institutions and rising public frustration. To fully understand the gravity of the situation, it has become increasingly clear that relying solely on daily news coverage is no longer sufficient. Mainstream reporting often highlights surface-level drama while failing to unpack the deeper forces driving events. That is why independent political analysis has become essential for anyone seeking to grasp what is really happening beneath the noise. At the center of this growing crisis stands the ANC itself, a party that once drew strength from unity, its liberation legacy, and its moral authority. Today, however, it faces intense scrutiny and internal pressure that many believe has reached a dangerous threshold. Political circles are buzzing with rumors and claims that senior figures within the party may have deliberately leaked a sensitive document. If true, this would represent more than a breach of protocol. It would mark a significant escalation of internal power struggles into open confrontation. The document is alleged to contain details about a supposed relationship between President Cyril Ramaphosa and a businessman known as Cat Matlala, or Cat Matlala, a name already burdened with controversy in South Africa due to unresolved questions and past scandals. Although these allegations remain unverified and unproven, their mere circulation has triggered widespread panic within the ANC. Urgent meetings, frantic phone calls, and behind-the-scenes efforts to contain the fallout have reportedly followed, as leaders scramble to prevent the situation from spiraling out of control. What makes this episode particularly volatile is not only the content of the alleged document, but also the identities of those believed to have leaked it. Claims that two high-ranking officials may have acted deliberately have fueled anger and suspicion within the party. These accusations reinforce the perception of a deeply divided organization, where rival factions appear willing to undermine one another in pursuit of influence ahead of critical moments, such as leadership battles and upcoming elections. For many analysts, this leak does not look like an isolated act of misconduct. Instead, it resembles a calculated move within a broader struggle for power, one that exposes just how fragile the ANC's internal cohesion has become after years of factional conflict, ideological drift, and unresolved corruption scandals. If the allegations were eventually proven true, the consequences for the ANC's credibility could be devastating. Yet even if they are disproven, the damage to public trust may already be irreversible. In politics, perception often carries more weight than fact. Once voters come to believe that a party is compromised or dishonest, restoring confidence becomes an uphill battle. The involvement of a controversial businessman alone is enough to reignite public anger and intense media scrutiny. It feeds into a long-standing narrative that the ANC has failed to fully escape the shadow of corruption and questionable alliances, a narrative many South Africans are deeply weary of after years of scandal and unmet promises of renewal. President Ramaphosa's response, or perceived lack of response, has become another focal point of debate. Supporters interpret his silence as caution and a deliberate decision to wait for verified information before speaking. Critics, however, see the same silence as a sign of indecision, weakness, or even complicity, arguing that a leader firmly in control of his party should be able to confront such a crisis decisively. This uncertainty has intensified anxiety within the ANC, particularly among regional leaders, alliance partners, and trade union representatives. Many have become increasingly vocal in demanding transparency and clear action, fearing that prolonged ambiguity will further erode public confidence and weaken the party's prospects in future elections. What troubles observers most is what this episode reveals about the ANC as an organization. The alleged use of confidential documents as political weapons suggests a breakdown of trust so severe that members no longer believe disputes can be resolved internally or that collective interests should be protected. For decades, ideological differences and factional rivalries were held together by a shared history and a common purpose rooted in the struggle against apartheid. That binding force now appears to be dissolving, replaced by a readiness to sacrifice unity for personal or factional advantage. This kind of internal warfare does not remain confined within party structures. It inevitably spills into the machinery of government itself, slowing decision-making, stalling policy implementation, and creating an atmosphere of uncertainty that affects every level of the state. When leaders are consumed by internal battles and suspicion, governance suffers. The public sees a ruling party that struggles to manage its own affairs, let alone the complex challenges facing the country. The consequences extend beyond politics into the economic sphere, where investor confidence, market stability, and the reputation of South Africa's institutions are all highly sensitive to perceptions of instability. International observers are watching closely for signs that the country could be entering another prolonged period of uncertainty. Meanwhile, opposition parties have moved quickly to capitalize on the controversy, arguing that it proves the ANC can no longer be trusted to govern effectively. While such claims are politically motivated, they resonate with a growing segment of the population that feels disillusioned and skeptical. For President Ramaphosa personally, this crisis represents one of the most severe tests of his leadership. It threatens not only his authority within the party, but also the legacy he will leave behind. Even if future investigations clear his name or discredit the leaked document, the sense of betrayal, division, and mistrust exposed by this episode will not fade easily. Rebuilding the ANC's image and restoring internal cohesion could take years, if it is possible at all. Ultimately, this controversy is about far more than a single document or one businessman. It speaks to deeper questions of accountability, transparency, and moral direction within South Africa's ruling party at a moment when the country urgently needs credible and stable leadership. It forces both politicians and citizens to confront difficult truths about what the ANC stands for today and whether it can still live up to the values that once defined it. For those who care about South Africa's future, this moment makes it essential to remain informed, engaged, and willing to look beyond official statements and polished narratives. Because how this crisis is resolved will shape not only the fate of the ANC, but also the strength of South Africa's democratic institutions and the direction the nation takes in the years ahead.